heroes said, there are those who look at things the way they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not? Why not? I love movies and books about people who achieve what the other people think are impossible. I guess that's why The Impossible Dream is one of my favorite songs. I love to see the underdog win. And even though it may be a football team that I'm rooting for that I really like, I sometimes feel a little bit of sympathy for the ones who are losing. And you know, there's always going to be a loser in a football game, but that's not true of life. There is not true of life. One of my favorite movies is about a young girl and a horse. The horse is named the Soñador, which is Spanish for dreamer. And the little girl was a dreamer also. And when she began to care for this horse, she fell in love with it. And they bonded, they connected. And she began to dream about this horse being a great racehorse. And everybody, including her father, said there is no way this horse can ever run a bend, and especially not run a race and win. There's just no way it can happen. She says, yes, yes, it can happen. And so she worked with the horse. She taught it. She loved it. And she loved it into its greatness. And it won the race. Against all odds, it won the race. And my other favorite horse story is about Secretariat. And if you know anything about Secretariat, you know this was a great racehorse who also beat the odds. And Secretariat's owner beat the odds because the owner was a woman in a time when women were not supposed to do the kinds of things that she did. In fact, she and her family lived in Colorado, and the horse's stable was in Virginia, and she flew back and forth so that she could groom this horse to become the great racehorse it was. These are the underdogs, but these are people who had a dream, and they wouldn't let anybody rob them of that dream. I've had lots of dreams in my life. And you could probably say I'm the underdog in this because with the background that I've had as a child and growing up and the things that I've seen in my life, you would think that the things that I've dreamed of would never ever happen. But most of my dreams have come true. I say most because a few haven't, and some of those I just let go of because I realized that really wasn't my dream after all. And some of them haven't yet materialized because the time isn't right. But what I'm knowing about dreams are that they are God's urges. God's urge in you to be larger than you are. Most of us are happy to just be whatever it is we find ourselves in our everyday life. And we think, well, this is it. This is all it's ever going to be. But that's not who you are. And that's not why you were born. You were born to let the divine out. Some of us, if we look at a caterpillar, we'll think it's ugly. And most of us will probably squelch them. But if we leave a caterpillar alone and let it do its natural thing, it becomes that great butterfly. And the butterfly, of course, now is this universal symbol for transformation, because the butterfly was once the lowly caterpillar that most of us didn't like. And we see them and we but when they're left alone, they become the beautiful butterflies. And this is what is within you, in each one of you. capability of becoming a beautiful butterfly. I stand before you today as a teacher of a great philosophy that I fell in love with 14 years ago. Rod and I went into our first Science of Mind Religious Science Church 14 years ago, First Church of Religious Science on San Pedro in Albuquerque. And we came away touched like we had never been in our lives, or at least I was. I cried through the entire service. I don't remember what the message was, but I remember the feeling that I had. I remember the feeling of the tone of the words. And it is the feeling that resonated with me at a deep cellular level, so much so that I never turned back. And I'm standing here before you today because of the feelings that that message lit up inside of me. It was something about the message, and then I started studying Science of Mind and discovered this was what I had been looking for all of my life. And that's what I was born to do, to stand before you and teach this thing called Science of Mind. And this is why I love Science of Mind. I came into Science of Mind as a victim. Anybody that resonate with anybody? Now, I didn't know I was a victim. I thought I was just going to church one Sunday. But I came into Science of Mind as a victim. And what I mean by that is I was seeking something outside of myself to make my life better. I wanted Santa Claus to bring me everything I wanted for Christmas. That's how I came into Science of Mind. And it wasn't long until I began to realize that there wasn't anything outside of myself that was going to make my life better, that it was all right here, that it's right here within me that's going to make my life better. And so I went on a little bit further into Science of Mind, and I discovered what that was. I discovered that there is a law, and the law is what I use to make my life better. Then I learned about a power that's within me, and it's the same power that's in you, and that power is what created this universe. And then I began to learn how to use the law and to use this power within me to create whatever it was that I was wanting in my life. I began to use spiritual practices, and then I began to use the principles of Science of Mind to make my life better. This is how we all are. And little by little, I began to forgive. This is a really difficult place to be, to realize that there are people in my life that I was holding unforgiveness for. And what I was learning is that unforgiveness was hurting myself more than it was hurting them. So little by little, I learned to forgive. And I also learned to forgive myself. And I learned to stop blaming other people and outside circumstances for things in my life I didn't like. And then there's surrender. Oh, this is the hard one. Not as hard as forgiveness. Surrender. First of all, I had to find out what I'm surrendering to. And then I had to be able to surrender. You know, for a control freak, which I think most of us are, but we don't want to admit it. Surrender is a difficult process because it means that I'm letting go of how things turn out. And if I let go of it, how can I be sure it's going to turn out the way I want it? Ooh, I can't. But I have to surrender to it. And it may not turn out exactly the way I want it, but it will probably turn out even better when I surrender. I let Spirit live through me. This is what surrender means, and most of us don't understand this. When we're surrendering, what we're doing is letting Spirit live through us. And we're not compartmentalizing. We're not saying, okay, Spirit, I can take care of this. Oh, I do that. I think I did that this morning when I was writing something. Oh, dear. I was actually back there in that place of non-surrender, saying, oh, this is the way I want it to be. Oh, what a lesson. Surrender. Let Spirit live through us. We make ourselves available for our own evolution. Do you know this is what we're doing? When we're surrendering, we're letting ourselves become available to Spirit for evolution, for our own evolution, for Spirit's evolution through us. Do we realize this is what our lives are all about, folks? That it is Spirit or God evolving through each one of us? And as we allow it to evolve, then our lives become richer. We become more open. And things begin to fall into place. We begin to live in the flow. You know about the flow. You know that when you're doing something you just really love, how time just seems to stop. You look up at your clock and you'll think, oh my goodness, 3 or 4 hours have gone by. That's living in the flow. And when we surrender, that's what we're doing. We're living in the flow of life. And the last one is that we become a partner with the divine. We open ourselves to the love that is the greatest love of all, that is God. And we're letting that love be our map, our life. We're letting that love be our inner guide. We're letting ourselves be guided by love rather than hate, by love rather than materialism, by love. And then when we are guided by love, we begin to see the unity of everything. We begin to see that we're all connected at a higher level. That all of us, there's not one of us that is not connected with that divine and with each other. This is when we know that we are in partnership with the divine. When we can say that God is all there is, the Father and I are one, and you and I are one as well, and that dissolves all differences. It dissolves fear and suspicion of each other. This is what I love about Science of Mind, and this is why I'm here today. When I stop to think, how do I want to spend the rest of my life? As much as I sidestep it and as many other things that I like to do, the one thing that prevails is I want to teach Science of Mind in any format. And the reason I do is that I know it is our salvation. It is the salvation of the world, I believe. Because it teaches the unity of all. It teaches that you are the face of God. And that when I'm looking at the face of God, am I going to destroy it? This is why I love Science of Mind. I have a dream. This is my dream, to be able to teach this to anyone who's going to listen to it. And I'm standing before you telling you, I don't have a problem with the name, Science of Mind. In fact, I love it. The reason I love it is because I have a tiny bit of a scientific background. I say tiny bit because I'm not a great scientist by any means, but I have just enough that the science was really giving me a hard time with religion. And when I found religious science, it was like a marriage for me. It was the marriage of science and spirituality. And I've studied that a lot in the last 14 years too. And I can see the beauty in both. And that's why I love both. And that's why I love Science of Mind. And I can stand before you and tell you, I am a religious scientist, and I am proud of it. And I have no problem with letting you know that. So I have this dream. I have this dream of teaching this to anyone who's willing to sit for 20 minutes to listen to it.